$300. That's what I had to my name when I found myself sleeping in my car 7 years ago, abandoned by everyone I'd ever loved, with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes and a crushing weight of shame and fear pressing down on my chest. Fast forward to today, and I'm standing in my own office building running a 7-figure business, living a life I couldn't have imagined in my darkest moments. But the journey between those 2 points, that's a story of absolute devastation, relentless determination, and discovering that sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing you'll ever create. Before I tell you how I went from rock bottom to the top, I need you to do something crucial for me right now. Drop a comment below and tell me exactly where in the world you're watching this from. Are you in New York, Los Angeles, London, Sydney, Tokyo, Mumbai, or somewhere else entirely? I read every single comment, and knowing this message is reaching people across the globe who might be struggling with their own battles, that's what makes sharing this story worth it. And listen, if what I'm about to share resonates with you, if you feel even a fraction of connection to this journey, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now, smash that like button, and turn on notifications because I share real stories, real strategies, and real talk every single week. This channel is about truth, transformation, and proving that your circumstances don't define your destiny. Also, do me a favor and share this video with someone who needs to hear that they can overcome anything, because trust me, they need this message today. My name is Jordan Matthews, and 7 years ago, I was a 22-year-old college dropout with no family, no support system, no safety net, and no idea how I was going to survive the next week, let alone build the life I have now. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really began, because understanding where I came from is essential to understanding how impossible this transformation really was. I grew up in a deeply conservative religious household in rural Georgia. My father was a preacher at our local Baptist church, a man whose entire identity was wrapped up in his faith, his reputation in the community, and his unwavering belief in traditional values. My mother was the perfect pastor's wife, always smiling, always serving, always making sure our family looked absolutely flawless from the outside. I had 2 younger sisters who adored me, at least back then, and we lived in this beautiful old farmhouse that had been in our family for 3 generations. From the outside, we looked like the American dream. Inside, we were a pressure cooker of expectations, judgment, and the suffocating weight of having to be perfect at all times. And I was hiding the biggest secret of my life, a secret that I knew with absolute certainty would destroy everything the moment it came to light. I knew I was gay when I was 13 years old. I didn't have the vocabulary for it yet, didn't fully understand what I was feeling, but I knew with gut-wrenching clarity that I was different from the other boys in my school, different in a way that my family, my church, my entire community considered an abomination. I heard the sermons my father preached about homosexuality. I heard the way people in our town talked about the one openly gay student at our high school. I saw the disgust, the hatred, the absolute conviction that people like me were sinners destined for hell. So I buried it. I buried it so deep that sometimes I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. I dated girls in high school, went through the motions, performed the role of the straight pastor's son with Academy Award-worthy precision. I led youth group at church. I quoted scripture. I sang in the choir. I did everything right, everything expected of me, while this truth inside me grew heavier and heavier until I felt like I was drowning under the weight of my own deception. College was supposed to be my escape. I got a full scholarship to the University of Georgia, and for the first time in my life, I was away from the constant surveillance of my small town. I was 2 hours from home, which felt like freedom. And slowly, carefully, I started to explore who I really was. I met Daniel during my sophomore year. He was in my economics class, brilliant and funny and openly, unapologetically gay. He didn't hide who he was. He didn't apologize for it. He just existed in his truth with this confidence I'd never seen before, and I was drawn to him like a moth to flame. We became friends, then something more, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I could breathe, like I was finally being honest about who I was. Dating Daniel in secret was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. At school, we could be ourselves. We could hold hands walking across campus. We could kiss goodnight after studying together. We could just be two people in love, and it felt revolutionary. But every time I went home for holidays, for weekends, for family events, I had to shove myself back into that suffocating closet, and each time it got harder and harder to breathe in there. Daniel was patient with me. His family knew about us, accepted us, welcomed me into their home with open arms. He'd grown up in a progressive household in Atlanta, where being gay was no big deal, just another aspect of who he was. He couldn't fully understand the terror I felt about coming out to my family, but he tried. He held me when I cried about it. He told me I didn't have to come out until I was ready, but he also gently reminded me that living a double life was eating me alive. I made it through my junior year of college maintaining this impossible balance. I was getting straight A's, working part-time at a local coffee shop, building a life in Athens that felt authentic and real. But every time my phone rang and it was my mum calling, every time my dad texted asking when I'd be home for the weekend, every time my sisters sent me photos of family gatherings I'd missed, the guilt compounded. I was lying to them. Every single day, I was lying by omission, and it was destroying me from the inside out. The decision to come out wasn't really a decision at all. It was more like a dam breaking. I'd been holding back this torrent of truth for so long that when it finally burst through, I couldn't control it. It was Thanksgiving of my senior year. I'd brought Daniel home with me, introducing him as my roommate and study partner. We were careful, so careful, but my mother has always had this uncanny ability to see through me. She cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping her prepare dinner. The rest of the family was in the living room watching football. It was just the two of us, and she turned to me with this look I'd never seen before. This mixture of fear and knowing and desperate hope that she was wrong about what she was thinking. "Jordan," she said quietly, "is there something you need to tell me about Daniel?" My heart stopped. I could have lied. I could have laughed it off, made up some story, protected the fragile peace for a little while longer. But I was so tired, so incredibly tired of lying, of hiding, of being someone I wasn't. And in that moment, standing in my childhood kitchen with my mother looking at me like that, something inside me just broke open. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "I'm gay. Daniel isn't just my roommate. He's my boyfriend. I've been gay my whole life, and I can't hide it anymore." The color drained from her face. She actually stumbled backward, gripping the counter for support like I'd physically struck her. For what felt like an eternity, she just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing without any words coming out. And then she started crying, these deep, gut-wrenching sobs that brought my father running into the kitchen. "What's wrong?" he demanded, looking between us. "What happened?" My mother couldn't speak. She just pointed at me, her hand shaking, tears streaming down her face. My father's eyes narrowed, and I watched his expression shift from concern to confusion to understanding, to a rage I'd never seen before. "Tell me she's misunderstanding," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Tell me what I think is happening isn't happening." "I can't, Dad," I said, and I was crying now too. "I'm gay. I've been trying to tell you for years, but I was scared. I'm still scared. But I can't lie anymore. This is who I am." What happened next has been replayed in my mind thousands of times. My father's face turned purple with rage. He started yelling, screaming about sin and damnation and how I was destroying our family, destroying his ministry, destroying everything he'd built. My sisters came running into the kitchen. Daniel appeared in the doorway, looking terrified. My mother was still sobbing, clutching her chest like she was having a heart attack. "Get out," my father finally said, his voice cold and final. "Get out of my house. You are not my son. I have no son who lives in such disgusting sin. Dad, please," I begged. "Please, let's talk about this. I'm still me. I'm still Jordan. Nothing's changed except that you know the truth now." "Everything has changed," he said. "You've made your choice. You've chosen this perversion over your family, over God, over everything we taught you. And I'm making my choice. You're not welcome in this house, not welcome in this family, not welcome in my life. Pack your things and leave. Now." I looked at my mother, desperately hoping she'd intervene, that she'd calm him down, that she'd be the voice of reason and love. But she wouldn't even look at me. She turned her back and walked out of the kitchen, her shoulders shaking with sobs. My sisters, who were 16 and 14 at the time, looked at me with this mixture of confusion and fear and what might have been pity. But they didn't say anything. They didn't defend me. They didn't hug me goodbye. They just stood there as I walked past them. As Daniel and I packed our things as quickly as possible, as we loaded our bags into his car and drove away from the only home I'd ever known. I called my father the next day, trying to reason with him, trying to explain, trying to find some path back to my family. He told me he'd prayed about it and God had made it clear that until I renounced my lifestyle and sought help to fix myself, I was dead to him. He said he would tell everyone at church that I'd chosen a path of sin and that the family was grieving my loss. He said he would not pay for my college anymore, would not give me another cent, would not speak to me until I came to my senses. I was 4 months away from graduating with a degree in business administration. I had a 3.8 GPA. I'd worked my entire college career toward this goal, and suddenly it was being ripped away from me because of who I loved. I tried to talk to financial aid, tried to figure out if I could take out loans to cover my last semester, but the numbers didn't work. I couldn't afford to finish school. I had to drop out 3 months before graduation. 3 months. I was so close. And I had to walk away from everything I'd worked for because my father decided his bigotry was more important than his son's future. Daniel and his family tried to help. They offered me their guest room, offered to loan me money, offered everything they could. And I was grateful, so incredibly grateful, but I also felt like the world's biggest burden. I was depressed, barely functioning, mourning the loss of my entire family, while trying to figure out how to survive without the safety net I'd always taken for granted. I got a full-time job at a restaurant, waiting tables and working doubles to make ends meet. Daniel was still in school, finishing his degree in computer science. We moved into a tiny apartment together, and I tried to build some semblance of a life. But I was barely surviving. I was going through the motions, showing up for work, coming home exhausted, and lying awake at night wondering how I'd gotten here. How being honest about who I was had cost me absolutely everything. 6 months after I dropped out of college, Daniel got a job offer in San Francisco. It was an incredible opportunity, a dream job at a major tech company, the kind of offer you don't turn down. And he asked me to come with him, to start fresh on the West Coast, where we could build a life together, far away from the pain of Georgia. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to pack up and run away to California and leave all of this behind. But I was also drowning in depression, in grief, in this overwhelming sense of failure and worthlessness. I pushed Daniel away. I picked fights with him. I sabotaged our relationship because some broken part of me believed I didn't deserve love, didn't deserve happiness, didn't deserve anything good after what had happened. He left for San Francisco without me, and I didn't blame him. I'd made it impossible for him to stay. I'd taken his love and support and thrown it back in his face because I hated myself too much to accept it. He sent me messages for weeks afterward, asking me to reconsider, telling me he still loved me, begging me to come to California and start over with him. But I was too far gone in my own darkness to see the lifeline he was throwing me. I spiraled. I got fired from the restaurant for missing shifts, for showing up late, for not being able to fake enthusiasm with customers anymore. I couldn't afford my apartment and got evicted. I ended up sleeping in my beat-up Honda Civic in a Walmart parking lot, showering at a local gym where I'd maintained my membership as long as I could, eating cheap fast food when I could afford it, and nothing when I couldn't. That's where we started this story. 22 years old, $300 to my name, everything I owned in a duffel bag, sleeping in my car, abandoned by my family, having pushed away the one person who loved me, with no college degree, no prospects, and no idea how I was going to climb out of this hole I'd fallen into. Rock bottom is a strange place. It's terrifying and lonely, and so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face. But it's also clarifying. When you've lost everything, when you're sleeping in your car and using a McDonald's bathroom to brush your teeth, you realize something crucial. Things literally cannot get worse. And when you can't go down anymore, The only direction left is up. I remember the exact moment things shifted. I was sitting in my car at 3 in the morning, parked behind a 24-hour diner where I'd sometimes buy a coffee just so I could sit inside and use the Wi-Fi. I was scrolling through social media on my phone, looking at pictures of my former classmates who'd graduated, who were starting careers and adult lives, who had families who supported them, and futures that looked bright and promising. And I was consumed with this bitter, toxic jealousy that was eating me alive from the inside. But then I saw a post from this guy I'd known in high school, talking about how he'd started a lawn care business with $50 and a used lawnmower, and had grown it into a successful company. He wasn't particularly smart. He hadn't gone to college. He'd just worked hard, provided good service, and built something from nothing. And sitting there in my car in the middle of the night, exhausted and broke and at the absolute bottom of my life, I had this thought: if he can build something from nothing, why can't I? I didn't have much, but I had a few things. I had a business education, even if I didn't have the degree to show for it. I had experience in customer service from working at restaurants. I had a car that ran most of the time. I had $300, and I had absolutely nothing to lose. I started researching business ideas that required minimal startup capital. I looked into drop shipping, freelance services, consulting, anything that I could start with what little I had. And I kept coming back to one idea: digital marketing services for small businesses. Here's what I knew. Small businesses, especially local ones, were terrible at digital marketing. They had Facebook pages they never updated. They had websites that looked like they were built in 1995. They had no online presence, no strategy, no idea how to reach customers in the digital age. But they had money to pay someone who could help them, especially if that someone charged less than the big marketing agencies. I taught myself everything I could about social media marketing, search engine optimization, basic web design, content creation. I spent 12 to 16 hours a day at that diner, using their Wi-Fi, taking online courses, watching YouTube tutorials, reading everything I could find. I used my last $100 to buy a domain name and set up a basic website for my new company, Matthews Digital Solutions. My first client was the diner where I spent all my time. The owner had seen me there every single day for weeks, and one day he asked me what I was working on so intently. I told him I was starting a digital marketing business and I was looking for clients. He asked if I could help him get more customers. His restaurant was struggling and he couldn't afford the marketing agencies he'd contacted. I offered to do his first month of work for free. I'd redesign his website, set up his social media, create a content calendar, run some ads, and if he saw an increase in customers, he'd pay me $200 a month going forward. He had nothing to lose, so he agreed. I worked on his account like my life depended on it, because it did. I created a beautiful, mobile-friendly website. I set up his Facebook and Instagram accounts and started posting engaging content about the diner's history, daily specials, behind-the-scenes stories. I created a Google My Business listing and got him showing up in local searches. I ran targeted Facebook ads to people within 5 miles of his location. Within 2 weeks, he told me he'd seen a noticeable increase in new customers. Within a month, his revenue was up 15%. He paid me the $200 and asked if he could hire me for another month. I said yes, and I asked if he knew any other business owners who might need help. He introduced me to 3 other local business owners. I gave them the same pitch. Let me prove myself for free for 1 month, and if you see results, we'll talk about ongoing payment. 2 of them said yes. I started working with a hair salon and a family-owned hardware store. I was still sleeping in my car. I was still showering at the gym. I was still eating cheap food and counting every penny. But I was working, building something, moving forward instead of drowning in despair. And for the first time since my father had kicked me out, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Those first clients started paying me after their trial month. It wasn't much, $200 each, so $600 total. But it was something. I could afford to eat better. I could afford to maintain my gym membership. I could breathe a little easier. And then those clients started referring me to their friends. Word spread in the local business community that there was this young guy who did great digital marketing work for cheap. I started getting more clients. Within 3 months, I had 10 clients paying me between $200 and $500 per month. I was making about $3,000 a month, which wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to rent a room in a shared house, to buy groceries, to feel like a human being again. I moved out of my car 6 months after starting my business. I remember the first night I slept in an actual bed, in my own room, with a roof over my head that I'd paid for with money I'd earned myself. I cried. I cried because of how far I'd fallen and how hard I'd had to fight to get even to this basic level of stability. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I was driven by this furious determination to prove that I could make it, that my father had been wrong to throw me away, that I was worth something even without my family's approval. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Every penny I made beyond basic expenses went back into my business. I bought better equipment, took more courses, learned new skills. I started specializing in restaurant marketing because that's where I'd found my initial success. I became known as the guy who could help struggling restaurants increase their customer base and revenue. I raised my prices as my reputation grew. I started charging $1,000 a month per client, then $1,500, then $2,000. 2 years after starting Matthew's Digital Solutions, I had 30 restaurant clients. I'd hired 2 employees to help with the workload, and I was making over $100,000 a year. I moved into my own apartment, a nice one, in a good neighborhood. I bought a reliable car. I started saving money. I paid off the debts I'd accumulated during my darkest days. But something was still missing. I'd built a successful business, yes, but I was essentially a contractor, trading my time for money. I wanted to build something bigger, something scalable, something that could run without me being personally involved in every single client interaction. I started developing software. Working with a developer I'd met through my business network, I created a platform that automated a lot of the digital marketing tasks I'd been doing manually for my restaurant clients. Social media scheduling, review management, email campaigns, analytics reporting, all in one easy-to-use dashboard designed specifically for restaurant owners who weren't tech-savvy. I called it Restaurant Reach, and I started offering it to my existing clients as an add-on service. They loved it. It made my job easier and gave them more control over their marketing. And then I had another realization. Instead of just serving 30 restaurants, I could license this software to hundreds or thousands of restaurants across the country. I took a huge risk. I used all my savings, about $50,000, to properly develop and launch Restaurant Reach as a standalone SaaS product. I hired a proper development team. I created training materials and customer support systems. I built a sales funnel and started running ads to restaurant owners across the United States. The first month, I got 12 paying customers at $99 per month. It wasn't much, but it was proof of concept. The second month, I got 35 more customers. By month 6, I had over 200 restaurants paying me monthly to use my software. And the beautiful thing about software is that whether I had 10 customers or 10,000, my cost stayed relatively the same, but my revenue scaled dramatically. 3 years ago, I sold my digital marketing agency to focus full-time on Restaurant Reach. I took the money from that sale and invested it entirely into growing the software company. I hired a sales team. I hired more developers. I attended restaurant industry conferences and pitched my product. I got featured in restaurant trade publications. I partnered with point-of-sale systems and other restaurant technology providers. Today, Restaurant Reach serves over 5,000 restaurants across North America. We're processing millions of dollars in marketing spend for our clients. We employ 42 people. Last year, our revenue was $8.7 million, and we're on track to hit $12 million this year. I own my own office building. I drive a Tesla. I live in a beautiful penthouse apartment with a view of the city skyline. But here's what matters more than any of those numbers. I built this. From nothing, from less than nothing, from sleeping in my car with $300 and no support system. I proved that my worth wasn't dependent on my family's acceptance. I proved that being gay didn't make me broken or wrong or destined for failure. I proved that rejection, as devastating as it is, doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning. I haven't spoken to my father in 7 years. My mother reached out twice, both times to tell me she was praying for me and hoping I'd find my way back to God. My younger sister found me on LinkedIn last year, and sent me a message saying she was proud of me and sorry for how everything happened, but she wasn't ready to go against our parents by having a real relationship with me. My other sister hasn't reached out at all. And you know what? I've made peace with that. I grieved the family I lost. I went to therapy and worked through the trauma and the rejection and the pain. I learned that their inability to love me unconditionally was about them, not about me. Their rejection was a reflection of their limitations, their fear, their rigid beliefs, not a reflection of my value as a human being. I built a new family. My chosen family includes incredible people who celebrate me exactly as I am. I reconnected with Daniel 2 years ago. He's still in San Francisco, still working in tech, and we've become friends again. We're not romantic anymore, but there's love there, forgiveness and appreciation for what we meant to each other during such a difficult time. I'm currently dating Marcus, an amazing man I met at a tech conference who runs his own startup. His family has welcomed me with open arms, and it's healing in ways I didn't know I needed. I have friends who are like siblings to me. I have a business family, my employees, who I genuinely care about and who seem to care about me. I've built community, connection, and belonging without needing the approval of the people who share my DNA. My success isn't just measured in dollars, although I won't lie and say financial stability doesn't matter. When you've been homeless, when you've worried about where your next meal is coming from, having money represents security and freedom that's hard to overstate. But my real success is in who I've become through this journey. I'm confident in ways I never was before. I know I can survive anything because I've already survived the worst. I know I can build something from nothing because I've done it. I know I'm worthy of love and success and happiness because I've created all of those things for myself, without waiting for permission or approval from anyone else. I use my platform now to help other people. I mentor young LGBT entrepreneurs. I donate to organizations that support LGBT youth who've been rejected by their families. I share my story whenever I get the chance, because I know there's someone out there right now going through what I went through, feeling hopeless and worthless and like they'll never climb out of the hole they're in. And I need them to know that they can. They absolutely can. Is my life perfect now? No. I still have hard days. I still struggle sometimes with feelings of unworthiness that were programmed into me by years of religious trauma. I still occasionally wonder what it would be like to have a relationship with my biological family, to have them be proud of what I've accomplished, to have them at my wedding someday if I get married again. But those moments are getting fewer and further between. Because I've learned something crucial, you cannot wait for other people to validate your worth before you start living your life. You cannot put your dreams on hold, waiting for toxic people to change. You cannot let rejection define you. You have to decide that you're worthy, that you're capable, that you deserve good things, and then you have to work like hell to create the life you want. The journey from sleeping in my car to running a multi-million-dollar company wasn't luck. It wasn't easy. It wasn't handed to me. It was thousands of hours of work. It was failing and getting back up. It was learning from mistakes. It was being willing to start at the bottom and claw my way up one small victory at a time. It was deciding that my father's rejection didn't get to be the final word on my life. It was choosing to believe that I could create success on my own terms, build family from chosen connections, and find happiness without the approval of people who decided their prejudice was more important than their love. If you're watching this and you're in a dark place right now, if you've been rejected by your family or your community or anyone else for being who you are, I need you to hear this. Their rejection is not the end of your story. It's just the end of one chapter. You get to write the next chapter, and the one after that, and every chapter that follows. You might be starting from nothing. You might be starting from less than nothing. But that doesn't mean you can't build something extraordinary. It doesn't mean you can't create a life that's better than anything you could have imagined. It doesn't mean you're broken or worthless or destined to fail. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Learn everything possible. Outwork everyone around you. Build your skills. Create value for others. Don't wait for perfect conditions or for someone to give you permission or for circumstances to magically improve. Take action today, right now, with whatever resources you have access to, and surround yourself with people who see your worth even when you can't see it yourself. Find your chosen family, Build community with people who celebrate you rather than tolerate you. Invest in relationships with people who believe in your potential and want to see you succeed. The validation you're looking for from people who rejected you, you don't need it. I promise you, you don't need it. The approval of people who can't love you unconditionally is not the key to your happiness or success. You are the key. Your effort, your determination, your refusal to give up, your commitment to building something better, that's the key. 7 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought being rejected by my family meant I'd never amount to anything, that I'd never be happy, that I'd never recover from that level of loss. I was wrong, so completely wrong, because that rejection, as painful as it was, forced me to become someone I never would have become otherwise. If my father hadn't kicked me out, I probably would have finished college, gotten a safe corporate job, lived a comfortable but unfulfilling life, trying to be who they wanted me to be instead of who I actually am. I would have been financially stable but spiritually bankrupt, professionally successful but personally miserable. Instead, I was forced to figure out who I was without their influence. I was forced to build my own definition of success. I was forced to create my own path rather than following the one they'd laid out for me. And that forced independence, that mandatory self-reliance, became the foundation for everything I've built. I'm not grateful for the rejection. I'm not going to romanticize trauma or pretend that what my family did to me was somehow a blessing in disguise. It was cruel and wrong and caused me years of pain. But I am grateful for who I became in response to that rejection. I'm grateful for the strength I discovered I had. I'm grateful for the business I built. I'm grateful for the life I've created. And I want you to find that same transformation in whatever darkness you're currently walking through. I want you to look at your current circumstances, however dire they might be, and see them as the starting line rather than the finish line. I want you to believe that you can build something extraordinary from the ashes of whatever has burned down in your life, because you can. I'm living proof that you can. Thousands of other people who've overcome rejection and adversity are living proof that you can. Your story doesn't end with other people's inability to love you correctly. Your story is just beginning, and you get to decide how it unfolds from here. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, today, before you close this video and move on with your life, I want you to make a decision. Decide that you're not going to let rejection define you. Decide that you're going to build something, anything that moves you toward the life you actually want, rather than the life others think you should have. Decide that you're worthy of success and happiness and love, not because anyone else says so, but because you say so. And then take one action, just one, toward that decision. Research a business idea. Reach out to someone who might be able to help you. Apply for a job that scares you. Start learning a new skill. Do something, anything that represents forward movement. The journey from rock bottom to success isn't a straight line. It's messy and full of setbacks, and there will be days when you want to give up. But if you keep moving forward, if you keep taking action even when you can't see the path clearly, if you refuse to let circumstances or other people's rejection stop you, you will get there. Maybe not in the timeline you want, maybe not exactly how you envisioned, but you will build something meaningful. And years from now, when you're standing in your own version of success, whatever that looks like for you, you'll look back at this moment and realize it was a turning point. You'll realize that the decision you made today to keep going, to believe in yourself, to work towards something better, that was the moment everything changed. Before we wrap up, I need you to do something else for me. If this video resonated with you, if you found value in my story, if you believe this message could help someone else who's struggling right now, I need you to share it. Hit that share button and send it to someone who needs to hear that they can overcome anything. Post it on your social media. Send it in a text to a friend who's going through a hard time. Help me spread this message, because I guarantee someone in your network needs this today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. Every subscription, every like, every share helps this message reach more people who need it. I share new videos every week about entrepreneurship, overcoming adversity, building success after rejection, and creating a life you actually want to live. This community we're building together is about supporting each other, learning from each other's stories, and proving that our past doesn't dictate our future. Also, check out the video I've linked in the upper right corner of your screen right now. It's another story that I think you'll find valuable, especially if this one connected with you. Click on it, give it a watch, and let me know what you think in the comments. I want to leave you with one final thought. The people who rejected you, who told you that you weren't enough, who made you feel worthless or broken or wrong, they don't get to write the ending of your story. Only you get to do that. And I hope you write an ending so spectacular, so full of success and joy and love and fulfillment, that it makes their rejection look like the foolish mistake it was. Your best life, your biggest success, your greatest happiness, that's not behind you. It's ahead of you. And every single day that you wake up and decide to keep moving forward, you're one step closer to it. Don't give up, don't give in, don't let them win by proving their rejection was justified. Instead, prove to yourself and the world that you're unstoppable. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for your courage in facing whatever challenges you're dealing with right now. I see you, I believe in you, and I'm rooting for your success. Now go out there and build something extraordinary. I'll see you in the next video.